Hey guys, welcome back to another film review with me, Bo, here on the Film Scene Investigation channel. Thank you for checking out the video. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the 1993 drama, The Crush. Before we get into it, guys, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. All the support is greatly appreciated. So, The Crush from 1993 was written and directed by the filmmaker Alan Shapiro and starred the actress Alicia Silverstone in her debut role. Now, the movie, which was based on real events, faced some legal issues upon its release. The director, Alan Shapiro, was sued because he used a real name and gave it to Alicia Silverstone's character. The case was settled out of court, and subsequently the original name of Darian was changed to Adrian. Even though I appreciated the attempt at re-editing, I can't deny that the continuous overdubbing of the name was very noticeable. So the movie followed the character Nick Elliott, who was played by Carrie Elwes, a 28-year-old journalist who had just gotten a new job and decided to rent out a guest house. He looked around from place to place and eventually settled on a house in the suburbs of Vancouver. Nick ended up meeting the landlord's daughter, Adrian, who was played by Alicia Silverstone. She was this innocent, young-looking girl who was very eager to help Nick move in to the guest house. At the start, everything seemed, nice and friendly, but in the following days, Adrian started showing up unannounced as Nick tried to work. While I'm sure Nick found it quite annoying having this young girl hanging about all the time, given it was the landlord's daughter, Nick decided to kind of just put up with it. When it came to the new job, Nick was tasked by his new boss to write a piece on a local fraudster, but had some trouble completing the task. He, did his best and submitted what he had, but once the article was actually published, Nick realized that the words he had wrote had been changed, and he later found out that Adrian was responsible. She had gone behind his back, gained access to his computer, and manipulated his work without him knowing. Adrian did eventually confess to changing the work Nick had done, but she said that it was only because she wanted Nick to like her. She didn't mean it. And, things just got out of hand. That's what, she explained to Nick. And given the article was actually well received, Nick just kind of forgave her and just warned her not to do it again. What followed was perhaps the most controversial part of the film, where we saw Nick and Adrian exchange this passionate kiss before Nick finally pulled away. He knew that he had gone too far. He knew that he had crossed the line, yet Adrian just kept forcing herself onto him. It was a messy situation, for sure, and in the following days, Nick laid low and tried his best to keep out of sight. He basically gave Adrian the cold shoulder, which she definitely didn't like. I mean, nobody likes rejection, and with Adrian, she just couldn't handle it. In her eyes, she and Nick had, something special, and she wanted an actual relationship with him. While Nick tried his best to forget everything and, basically brush it under the carpet, Adrian just continued to pursue him. She started playing these mind games where she would leave loads of messages on Nick's answer phone, and eventually was able to gain access again to his computer and wipe his hard drive. Suddenly, Adrian was becoming a constant thorn in Nick's side. I mean, she was more than just a nuisance. She was basically evil, calculated, and was basically a dangerous person, not just to herself, but to others. This basically continued on for the rest of the movie, and with no end in sight, Nick eventually decided to leave the guest house. But before he could, he was arrested after Adrian told the authorities that Nick had sexually assaulted her. Nick was arrested and interrogated by detectives. Of course, he denied everything, yet, nobody wanted to believe him. Adrian had successfully convinced not only the authorities, but her parents too, about how Nick was this sexual predator who needed to be locked away. But what was actually going on in reality was that Adrian was the predator who was preying on the innocent. Now, one thing I found really interesting about watching The Crush was how my perception of the characters changed throughout the movie. Initially, I was rooting for Nick. I thought that, he really suffered at the hands of Adrian, what she did to him. But as the film ended, ultimately, I actually felt sorry for Adrian, because deep down, she was just a young woman with some serious psychological issues. Nick, on the other hand, should have known better. He was a lot older and wiser, and when I think about it, I kind of think he was partially to blame for what happened to him. I mean, if we take a step back and break everything down, this guy, Nick, consented to kissing a schoolgirl. Yes, I understand that he came to his senses, but let's face it, he still had this moment of weakness, this brief moment where he suddenly felt aroused, and in my opinion, that's just creepy. The guy eventually, pulled away, he stopped, but at the end of the day, he consented. It was a consensual kiss between a 28-year-old and a 15-year-old. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just wrong. Nick was in his late 20s, who arguably encouraged Adrian to, visit the guest house repeatedly. And let's not forget, even before the kiss, Nick had no issues giving Adrian, a nighttime drive to this lighthouse without her parents knowing. That to me, is kind of creepy anyway. What's he doing, driving this girl around at night? I mean, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't really have any sympathy for the character. When it comes to the acting in this movie, credit has to go to Alicia Silverstone for her gripping performance as Adrian. She really carried the film with her mesmerizing screen presence, and it was even more impressive given the fact that she was only 15 years old at the time of filming. The Adrian character was intelligent and sophisticated enough to realize that she could weaponize her sexuality to basically control others, which evidently fueled her destructive behavior. Her ability to shift from an innocent young girl to a cold and calculating, heartless person, it made Adrian a very compelling antagonist. For years, I've never really rated Alicia Silverstone as an actress, but Yeah, I have to say, she really nailed the performance here in The Crush. Yeah, I guess my opinion has completely changed knowing that she delivered such a fantastic performance. I didn't know she had it in her. It was a pleasant surprise. And, I'm not going to say that I've seen a large majority of her films. Of course, I've seen her in Clueless and, her as Batgirl. But yeah, she was phenomenal in this movie. And I'm surprised people don't really talk about this performance more because really this showcased her acting ability. It was really impressive, a pleasant surprise. I thought actor Carrie Elwes gave a fairly earnest performance as the journalist Nick Elliott. I'm not all that familiar with the guy's career, but yeah, he did a very good job here in the movie. While I can't say that I'm a fan of the Nick character, the actor did a solid job. And also his on-screen chemistry with Alicia Silverstone was very strong. I mean, they both looked the part and just a brilliant job all round. When it comes to the technical side of things, it's safe to say that The Crush is a well-made movie. From its cinematography and score, everything was clearly handled by a group of experienced people. One thing I really liked was the soundtrack to the film. It was basically a collection of early 90s bands, and there was some really good songs. Bands like Miracle Legion and Star Club all featured, and their music definitely suited the film's vibe and aesthetic that the filmmakers were going for. And so, dislikes for The Crush from 1993. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be the moment where we saw Nick punch Adrian in the face. So, in the lead up to this, we saw Adrian lead Nick up to her attic where she basically planned to kill him. But fortunately, Nick was able to stop her just in time and ultimately knocked her out. Now, to clarify, my dislike is not with the storytelling, as, I had no issue with Adrian, getting her comeuppance. I mean, she was evil and she needed to be stopped. And let's face it, I'm not a fan of the Nick character, but she was trying to kill him. So in fairness, he did the right thing. But my issue specifically came with the execution. As Nick punched Adrian, she basically flew across the room. And to me, it was just ridiculous. I don't know. She basically flew 8 feet, up in the air. And I just thought it was silly. Seeing Adrian manhandled like a rag doll, it was just over the top, and it just didn't need to be. I mean, come on. What really was the issue of Adrian just, falling down after she got punched like a normal person would? What was with the overdramatics? Why did she need to fly literally across the room? This film was based in reality, our reality. This wasn't some sort of, sci-fi film or some action, film like, with people flying across the room and explosions. So, I don't understand why the filmmakers went with this nonsense. I get some people may, watch this and be like, hey, whatever, it was, no big deal. It really wasn't that significant to the whole story. But if we're just talking about, me sitting down, watching this movie start to finish, I was fully engrossed. But there was one moment that, kind of took me out of the film, and that was it. And in my opinion, they should have just, removed that scene from the final cut and just had Adrian instead fall down. And so, ratings for The Crush from 1993. I am going to be rating this movie a solid 4.9 out of 10. I'm really glad that I finally got round to watching The Crush, as it was a very interesting story about people's behaviours and power dynamics. With its controversial premise combined with its execution, the movie is definitely a noteworthy entry in the thriller genre. As mentioned, I thought Alicia Silverstone was a major highlight in this film. She was just very enthralling with her performance as Adrian. Now, when this movie was released, there was a lot of negative feedback from the press, basically over the handling of Alicia Silverstone and, being portrayed, with her sexuality, her being so young. Some argued that they felt that Alicia Silverstone was being exploited for titillation. While I understand the sentiment completely, after watching the film, I thought, as a whole, it was, handled pretty tastefully. The movie really showcased her acting ability, and from what I've seen of her, this is her best performance. If you've seen The Crush, please let me know your thoughts and memories in the comment section below. For those who haven't, I definitely recommend it. And well, that's all from me today, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed my review of The Crush from 1993, a movie that I definitely recommend. I'll be back next week, of course, with another cult movie review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, take care.